Hey team. So this is a little bit different of a video than the ones that you've been watching in the course so far. And that's because I wanted to have a video in here where I actually share my own experience crate training my dogs. So you guys can get a couple use cases of different types of dogs suited to the two methods that I talk about within this course. Now the cry it out method is the one that you've learned so far. That's like my tried and true method that I try all of my puppies on. Typically it's the one that works really well with most dogs, but there are a couple of puppies that really struggle with it, and that's why we also have the crate equals everything method. I'm gonna talk about Coda, who was my first dog, and Loki, who's the dog who I own now, because those two dogs actually used each of the methods. Coda, I used the cry it out method, and for Loki, I used the crate equals everything method. I'm gonna talk about why I used one versus the other for those dogs and give you guys a clear idea of which dogs are suited for each method. So Coda was the first dog that I ever owned. He was a cattle dog, and when I had him, I was not a trainer at the time, and I had no idea what I was doing. So when I got him, I just kind of went on the internet and Googled how to crate train your dog, and the method that came up was the cry it out method. It's really prevalent online, and that's because it just works really well. So for him, we used the cry it out method, and night one, he cried maybe a couple times for like max 20 minutes. But he was fine, and we crated him away from us. He wasn't in the room with us. He was in his own crate area, and he was perfectly fine with that. And he was pretty much crate trained after about a week, or I would even say 5 days. Now, the reason why the cry it out method worked really well for Coda was for two reasons. One, he had solid genetics that set him up to be successful at that method. So he had genetics that allowed him to tolerate really high levels of stress. Like, this was the type of dog that you couldn't really shake. Like, it was really hard to frazzle him. So he was just like a really solid, very resilient dog, and that came from his genetics. His ability to tolerate stress was really high. So having him separated from us in the first day that he came into our house was something that he was able to cope with and overcome and then tolerate to a level where he was just like, yeah, this is just what happens to me. I'm okay with it. He had genetics built in to help him with that. The separation part was something that wasn't going to stress him out. That's because also he had the personality that went along with being separated from us. Like, he typically was the type of dog that liked being in the same room with you, but he didn't really care to be like cuddly or all up on your lap and getting pets or anything like that. He was very aloof, I would say, and extremely independent. He never really sought out being petted. Like, he didn't mind if you went up and wanted to pet him, that wasn't ever gonna be a problem, but he wasn't looking for that usually on a daily basis. So he just had the personality type of, yeah, I kind of like being in my own space anyway. So when you separate yourself from me and have me go in this crate, it doesn't really faze me. It's kind of what I prefer anyway. And that's really, the separation part is really the thing that we're trying to coach and train our dogs through when we're doing crate training. It's not so much the confinement, it's more the, can you tolerate being separated from your pack? And for a dog like Coda, he was pretty okay with that. So the cry it out method worked really well for him. Now, when we got Loki, now I've been a trainer for a couple years, we got Loki, and I was like, okay, we're gonna do the cry it out method. It's the one that I was using with my clients. We were finding success with it. The puppies were doing well with that. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a new puppy. We're gonna use the same method. So we get Loki home. We picked him up from the airport because he flew here from Slovakia. So we picked him up from the airport in the middle of the night, then drove home. We didn't get home until like 1 or 2 in the morning. So he wasn't even gonna be in the crate for like a full night the first night. We made sure that he ate on our ride back. We made sure that he went potty before we put him in the crate. And he should have been wicked exhausted. He just went through this huge experience of flying through the air at 10 weeks old. And so he should have been really, really tired. So I'm like, this is gonna go great. I'm gonna put him in the crate just like I did with Coda, just like I do with all my other clients. It's gonna go fine. It didn't go fine. It crashed and burned. It blew up in my face. He cried, I kid you not, for a solid 2 hours straight, like screaming bloody murder in his crate. And I live in an apartment, so we got a couple of complaints the next day. Our management told us that, a couple people complained overnight from a dog that was like screaming all night, and we're like, yeah, that was us. So I learned very quickly that the cry it out method for Loki just wasn't going to work for him. Looking back on it and knowing more about Loki's personality now, I know that it didn't work for 2 reasons. Again, genetics and personality. Genetics, he has a low ability to tolerate stress. He has a low capacity for frustration as well. Personality-wise, to help him overcome that, he's heavily dependent on information and guidance from his handler or whoever it is who's helping him in that moment. Typically it's me, but he's constantly seeking information from me on, am I doing this right? Is this correct? Is this what we should be doing right now? He's very dependent on that, which I don't mind. I'm there to help him and coach him through that anyway. But genetics-wise and personality-wise, that's what I was dealing with. On top of that, more of his personality, he is a very cuddly dog. So very unlike Coda, Loki loves getting pets. He loves being in your space. He actually spends a lot of the time during the day when I'm working on the computer or something, he'll come and lay like right under my chair, and that's where he'll hang out and fall asleep. He really likes being with his people. Genetically, he's bred to be a very social dog. So he's very pack driven. He likes to be with his household, family, unit, whatever. So I've got a dog who has low capacity for stress, low capacity for frustration. He's a little bit of a trepidatious dog too. He doesn't really dive into stuff. He likes to kind of scope things out before he pursues anything and really get a good gauge on stuff before he dives in. And then on top of that, he's extremely social and he likes to be cuddly and likes to be with his people. So doing the cry it out method for him wasn't gonna work. Now, that was the method that I had been using at the time. It was the one that I used with many of my clients because it works for most dogs, I've found at least. So I didn't really know what to do. I have to give credit here to Brett Bailey of Who's a Good Dog Industries. He's a trainer down in New York City. He's a mentor to me, and I asked him for help in this area, and he talked me through the new protocol that you're just about to learn, which is the crate equals everything method. We use that with Loki, and now he freaking loves his crate. I actually just had Loki stay with a colleague of mine. Loki is about 1.5 years now. I had him stay with a colleague of mine. She boarded him for me while Andrew and I went on vacation. And when I went to go pick him up, she said, I have never seen a dog love his crate as much as Loki does. Basically what happened was anytime there was a crate in the vicinity of wherever they were, either in the house or in the car or in their garage or even just like in the yard, Loki was like, oh, I'm gonna go in there, I wanna go in there. He loves his crate now. If you ask Loki if he loved his crate way, way back when he was 10 weeks old, he would say he hates it, it's a dreadful place. So the cry it out method worked well for him, and the reason why it did is because that method is a slower paced acclimation to the crate. What you're going to get in the next lesson is a PDF download that breaks down all of the steps that you'll need to follow starting from day 1 all the way through day 20. So it is a 3-week protocol. I give you exact steps of what you should be doing every single day and night to ensure that you're crate training your puppy in a way where they love their crate, they like being in there, and they learn to be calm in the crate. That being said, it is a long protocol. It does require commitment and a lot of patience on your part. you will be stuck at home for the first quarter to a third of it, maybe even half of the protocol. What Andrew and I did at the time was if somebody had to go to the store or go to the gym or do something, the other one was at home. Why we did that is because we didn't want to be in a situation where we both had to leave and put Loki in a crate that he wasn't really prepared and acclimated to be in, and then start to create negative associations with the crate. If he had a bad time in there, we were really trying to avoid that because we didn't want to build any negative associations. So it does require commitment, this protocol. If you can commit to it, you'll have a dog who loves being in their crate. But it does require extra work, harder work, I would say, than doing the cry it out method. And I don't say any of that to deter you from doing the method, but I just want to set you guys up to be successful, and I want to set clear expectations of what it's like to do the cry it out method versus the crate equals everything method. Crate equals everything method, great method. Cry it out method, great method. But certain dogs are going to be best suited for one or the other. So if you have a dog or a puppy that you're like, yeah, it's got really tough, strong genetics, it doesn't mind being apart from the people, it's kind of an aloof dog, it's very independent, then the cry it out method's gonna work fine. But if you have a dog like Loki, who's a bit hesitant, who's really dependent on getting information, overly social, like a really high pack drive, then you're probably gonna wanna go with the crate equals everything method. I just want you guys to have a little bit of a background and a few case studies to understand which one is likely going to suit your dog best. Because the goal of this course is to get your dog crate trained. It's just one of these methods is probably going to suit your dog better than the other. And if you find that you're in the crate equals everything method, there's nothing wrong with your dog. It just means that your dog needs a little bit slower paced training protocol and a little bit more help and guidance from you in order to learn to love being in their crate, which they will love being in their crate, and I'm excited for you to get there.